Next, we'll talk about the water cycle and wind. The water cycle is going to be the continuous movement of water between the atmosphere, land, and oceans. If you remember to the last section of notes, we talked about the troposphere and how that contains all of our weather. Well, this is going to be the continuous movement throughout the troposphere. Water is constantly being moved. Primarily, it's going to be held in the oceans and in the continents. However, it's also going to be found in the clouds in our atmosphere as well. So here's a picture of the water cycle showing the different processes that take place here. We'll mention each one of these and talk about them in descriptions as well. So what happens is evaporated water condenses to form what is known as precipitation. There's two processes that are going to be opposite of each other. The first one is going to be evaporation. This is when we have solar energy that's going to heat up the water molecules, causing them to rise and form as gaseous vapor. This is where water from the Earth's surface will go up into the atmosphere. And then what will happen is up there, as it rises, those molecules are going to start to cool down and thus slow down and start to condense or go through condensation, which is the process, once again, in which water vapor in the air is changed now into liquid form. This is what is responsible for the formation of the clouds that we have in our sky. Next will be transpiration. Transpiration is going to be the process in which plants will actually release water vapor into the air through their leaves. Plants are constantly doing this, so they're constantly losing water to the atmosphere, and thus they have to replace it by drawing more water in through their roots. Precipitation is going to be when that water that has collected in the atmosphere condensed, and now it's going to fall back down to the Earth's surface. Precipitation can be in the form of rainfall, snow, sleet, hail. All of that's going to be precipitation. So although water is constantly being cycled throughout the Earth and its atmosphere, the air is always going to contain a varying quantity of water vapor. What we call this amount of water vapor that is suspended within the air, it's known as humidity. So when you hear the weatherman say relative humidity, he's actually talking about the amount of vapor that is in the air compared to the maximum amount of the water that the air could hold at that temperature. Air that has a relative humidity of 100% is called saturated. That's usually when it's hot and muggy outside. Warmer air can hold more water vapor than cold air because, once again, if you go back to our physics that we've talked about, warmer air, warmer particles are going to move faster, and just like they are easier to dissolve substances, same thing with the air, it's able to hold more water in this case. The dew point is going to be the temperature at which the rate of condensation equals the rate of evaporation. So each morning there's going to be a dew point as the day begins, and the grass outside is going to have some dew on it. What happens is the air is going to condense to a liquid form. The higher humidity means that there's going to be more molecules of water in the air, and it's easier to form into liquid form. So the higher the humidity is usually going to be the higher the dew point. Within this water cycle, as that water gets evaporated up into the air, it's going to start condensing, and this is where we get our cloud formation from. Clouds form as warm, moist air rises. Water vapor condenses into tiny droplets of liquid as it cools, and depending on where the clouds form, they will have different shapes and different characteristics. We name our different types of clouds based on their shape and their altitude at which they're found. That helps us describe not only what the shape of the cloud is like, but also the height at which it is found. So you can see here there's going to be some common names of clouds in the troposphere. A lot of the ones that we have here in Kansas are going to be our stratus and our cumulus, and we have when we get our really bad storms, we have our cumulonimbus move through our Kansas plains. Along with cloud formation, there's air pressure. Air pressure helps with weather as well. The pressure that is found in a vertical column of air extending from the top of the thermosphere to the point of the measurement, that's going to be known as air pressure. And we'll talk about the different fronts and as they move through and the weather that results from that, but that's usually due to the fact that there's difference in air pressure. This is also sometimes known as barometric pressure and also sometimes called atmospheric pressure as well. Changes in the barometric pressure often accompany changes in the weather. So if there's falling pressure, that means there's a large air mass leaving the area. And if there's rising air pressure, that usually means there's another air mass moving into the area. In order to measure this, just like we would with pressure in our physics, we use pascals as our scientific unit. What can result from this changes in pressure is going to be wind. Wind is caused by the differences in pressure. There's pressure gradients that cause for the air to move. A pressure gradient is going to be a difference in air pressure from one place to another. Air moves from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. So when it's really windy outside, that means we're going from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure. Usually going from warm weather to cold weather. The direction of wind is going to be affected by the Earth's rotation. This is known as the Coriolis effect, or the curving of a path of a moving object from an otherwise straight path due to the Earth's rotation. In the northern hemisphere, you're going to see this curve go clockwise, while in the southern hemisphere, this curve will go counterclockwise. What this allows for is it actually allows for weathermen and meteorologists to predict weather patterns based on these natural curvings of these fronts and these winds that move through. Here's a picture of that. You can kind of see the rotation. So here up in the northern hemisphere, we have a clockwise pattern moving through, and then down below in the southern hemisphere we have a counterclockwise movement.